A teacher told her young class to ask their parents for a family story with the moral at the end of it, and to return the next day to tell their stories. In the classroom the next day, Joe gave his example first.
My dad is a farmer, and we have chickens. One day, we were taking lots of eggs to the market in a basket on the front seat of the truck when we hit a bump in the road. The basket fell off the seat, and all the eggs broke. The moral of the story is not to put all your eggs in one basket.
Very good,
said the teacher. Next, it was Mary's turn.
We are farmers too. We had 20 eggs waiting to hatch, but when they did, we only got 10 chicks. The moral of this story is not to count your chickens before they're hatched.
Very good,
said the teacher again, very pleased with the response so far. Next, it was little Johnny's turn to tell his story.
My dad told me this story about my Aunt Karen. Aunt Karen was a flight engineer in the war, and her plane got hit. She had to bail out over enemy territory, and all she had was a bottle of whiskey, a machine gun, and a machete.
Go on,
said the teacher, intrigued. So, little Johnny continued.
Aunt Karen drank the whiskey on the way down to prepare herself. Then she landed right in the middle of 100 enemy soldiers. She dropped 70 of them with the machine gun until she ran out of bullets. Then she nailed 20 more with the machete until the blade broke. And then she dispatched the last 10 with her bare hands.
Good heavens,
stammered the horrified teacher.
What did your father say was the moral of that frightening story?
Little Johnny replied,
Don't mess with Aunt Karen when she's been drinking.
On a bitterly cold winter morning, a husband and his blonde wife were listening to the radio during breakfast. They heard the announcer say,
"We are going to have 8 to 10 inches of snow today. You must park your car on the even-numbered side of the street so the snow plows can get through."
So the wife went out and moved her car. A week later, while they were eating breakfast again, the radio announcer said,
"We are expecting 10 to 12 inches of snow today. You must park your car on the odd-numbered side of the street so the snow plows can get through."
The wife went out and moved her car again. The next week, they are again having breakfast when the radio announcer said,
"We are expecting 12 to 14 inches of snow today. You must park."
Suddenly, the electric power went out. The wife was very upset. With a worried look on her face, she said,
I don't know what to do. Which side of the street do I need to park on so the snowplows can get through?
Then, with love and understanding in his voice, the husband replied, "Why don't you just leave the car in the garage this time?" Jack decided to go skiing with his best buddy Bob. So they loaded up Jack's minivan and headed north. After driving for a few hours, they got caught in a terrible blizzard. They pulled into a nearby farm and asked the attractive lady who answered the door if they could spend the night.
I realize it's terrible weather out there, and I have this huge house all to myself, but I'm recently widowed,
she explained.
I'm afraid the neighbors will talk if I let you stay in my house.
Don't worry, Jack said. We'll be happy to sleep in the barn. And if the weather breaks, we'll be gone at first light. The lady agreed, and the two men found their way to the barn and settled in for the night. Come morning, the weather had cleared, and they got on their way. They enjoyed a great weekend of skiing. But about 9 months later, Jack got an unexpected letter from an attorney. It took him a few minutes to figure it out. But he finally determined that it was from the attorney of that attractive widow that he had met on the ski weekend. He dropped in on his friend Bob and asked, "Bob, you remember that good-looking widow? From the farm we stayed at on our ski holiday up north about 9 months ago?"
"Yeah, I do,"
said Bob. "Did you happen to get up in the middle of the night, go up to the house and pay her a visit?"
"Well, yes,"
Bob said, a little embarrassed about being found out. "And did you happen to give her my name instead of telling her your name?" Bob's face turned beet red, and he said, "Yeah, look, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm afraid I did." "Why do you ask?" Jack replied, "She just died and left me everything." A woman in her 80s made the evening news because she was getting married for the 4th time. The following day, she was being interviewed by a local TV station. The commentator asked her what it felt like to be married again at that age, and would she share part of her previous experiences. It seemed quite unique that her new husband was a funeral director. After a short time to think, a smile came to her face. She proudly explained that she had first married a banker when she was in her 20s. In her 40s, she married a circus ringmaster. In her 60s, she married a pastor. And now, in her 80s, a funeral director. The amazed commentator asked her why she had married men with such diverse careers. With a smile on her face, she explained,
I married 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go.
A cab driver reaches the pearly gates and announces his presence to St. Peter. St. Peter looks him up in his big book. Upon reading the entry for the cabbie, St. Peter invites him to grab a silk robe and a golden staff and to proceed into heaven. A preacher is next in line behind the cabbie and has been watching these proceedings with interest. He announces himself to St. Peter. Upon scanning the preacher's entry in the big book, St. Peter furrows his brow and says,
Okay, we'll let you in, but take that cloth robe and wooden staff.
The preacher is astonished and replies, But I am a man of the cloth. You gave that cab driver a gold staff and a silk robe. Surely I rate higher than a cabbie. St. Peter responded quite matter-of-factly,
Here we are, interested in results. When you preached, people slept. When the cabbie drove his taxi, people prayed.
A farmer spends $5,000 on a young registered Black Angus bull to mate with his cows. He puts the bull out with the herd, but the animal just eats grass. He won't even look at the cows. The farmer feels cheated, so he brings in the local vet to check out the bull. The bull is very healthy, the vet explains, but possibly just a little young. So he gives the farmer pills to feed the bull once per day. It will help with his urge to mate. After a few days, the bull starts to service a few cows, and within a week, every cow on the farm. The bull even breaks through the fence and breeds with all the neighbors' cows. He turns into a mating machine. A friend of the farmer asks exactly what the vet gave the bull to cause such a drastic change.
I don't know exactly what was in them pills,
The farmer says.
All I can tell you is they work. And they taste like peppermint.
While sitting on the side of the highway waiting to catch speeding drivers, a state police officer sees a car puttering along at 20 miles per hour. He thinks to himself,
This driver is just as dangerous as a speeder.
So he turns on his lights and pulls the driver over. Approaching the car, he notices that there are 5 old ladies, 2 in the front seat and 3 in the back, wide-eyed and white as ghosts. The driver, obviously confused, says to him,
Officer, I don't understand. I was doing exactly the speed limit. What seems to be the problem?
Ma'am,
the officer replies,
you weren't speeding, but you should know that driving slower than the speed limit can also be a danger to other drivers.
Slower than the speed limit?
the old woman asked.
No, sir. I was doing the speed limit. Exactly 20 miles per hour.
The old woman says a bit proudly. The state police officer, trying to contain a chuckle, explains to her that 20 was the route number, not the speed limit. A bit embarrassed, the woman grinned and thanked the officer for pointing out her error. The officer then asked,
Before I let you go, ma'am, I have to ask, is everyone in this car okay? These women seem awfully shaken, and they haven't muttered a single peep this whole time.
Oh, they'll be all right in a minute, officer. We just got off Route 119.